welcome to the Death Battle cast. We are the cast and crew of Death Battle. I'm Ben, the voice of Wiz, and joining me is a couple people who haven't been on cast, I think, in a little bit. So we got
Been a hot minute.
Liam.
Well, hello there. I'm Liam. I am a writer for Death Battle.
We've got Luis.
Hello.
Everybody has to do a ridiculous voice.
Hey everybody, I'm Luis. I'm animation director for Death Battle.
Then we got, for the first time in a while, Nick.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I am an editor for Death Battle, former researcher and writer, but today I'm just your editor.
We've got people from every aspect of the Death Battle production line, timeline
Machine.
for a single episode, basically. Yeah, machine. There you go. The Death Battle machine. Because this week's Death Battle cast is going to be a little different than usual, I think. Maybe even a better 200th episode sort of celebration than our last episode, which was our 200th Death Battle cast episode. So normally we would be doing a Q&A right now for the most recent Death Battle that just came out. Unfortunately, the episode that was supposed to have come out by last weekend was delayed. We talked about that last week, but basically, long story short, is it was pushed in order to help coincide with the release of Red vs. Blue Zero, because we want to support our friends, and they are so passionate about the show that we want to make sure that things go well for them. More details in the previous episode of cast. So I figured, if we can't do a Q&A on a Death Battle episode, why not do a Q&A on Death Battle as a whole?
The whole dang show.
Yeah, like different aspects of the production, talking about from start to finish how we do things, which is why we have somebody from almost every aspect of the show's production, writing, editing, animation, and then me just being here, I guess.
Doing nothing.
I can talk a little bit about every aspect, obviously.
Just taking all the credit. No.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Ben. Don't worry, Ben.
I don't do anything for the show.
We got like 10 years of questions to cover, so don't worry.
Oh God. So I made a post on the Death Battle Twitter yesterday asking for questions, but I will also be looking at the chat if you're a first member watching this live and you are in the chat right now. I will be keeping an eye on it the whole time. But basically, we're just gonna chatter about how Death Battle is made and see what happens. But yeah, if you have anything you want us to talk about or have any follow-up questions, any questions that we might be answering, just pop in the chat. Let us know. I'll be keeping an eye on it. And Nick, it's great to have you on the show again. It's been a while, I believe.
Yeah, I love being on the show. So anytime you want a waste of an episode where I can just derail the conversation, you just invite me right on.
I believe this is the first time we've been on cast together, Nick. Though.
No,
I think this is the first time.
Special moment.
Episode
I feel
201? No,
I
it can't be. I can't accept that. I can't accept that.
Oh my gosh. Well, happy 201st episode, everybody.
Yeah.
That's the milestone.
Congratulations.
Episode, right? God, the fact that we've done over 200 of these cast episodes, I don't know.
I remember
what we've
doing
been
like the test episodes back in Dallas. You remember doing those? Those
Yeah.
were fun.
And back
Now
when we
it's
had
not.
like
I'm just kidding.
the
I'm just kidding. Hey, lower
Back-
third.
Yes,
Thank you.
finally.
That's the thing,
Only
and of
took
course-
201 episodes.
of course we're
Please
joined
take the
by
heart.
Cody.
Wait, hold on.
Oh
Wait.
God.
No, the other way. Wait,
It's a
hold on.
mind
There
trick.
you go.
Make your
Horribly
hand smaller.
lopsided.
I'll make mine bigger.
What is that? Okay. Merge the hands. No.
Oh, this is so
Okay.
trippy. We'll get
As
it.
can't do
always,
Okay.
as usual, Cody is helping engineer for us and reacting and putting up with our bullshit. So thank you, Cody. Feel free to chime in
Cody.
if you want. All right, so let's
I
go
love
ahead
you.
and look. There he is.
We love you too.
Yes, we do. So let's go ahead. We can just go ahead and jump into questions, unless anybody wants to give a sort of update. Nick, you've been editing for the past couple episodes. I think you are the editor or
Winter
main
Soldier Red
editor
Hood was
for
my
the
first one.
Red versus Blue as well. You've been working on that one.
Although Josh laid some groundwork on that, I just kind of picked up from where he left off.
Saberwolf Talbane, which is the one we announced that's coming up pretty soon. We had a special sneak peek in last week's episode if you want to check that out. Or a little, not, I guess not, the animation sneak peek will be next week. There was an announcement trailer last week that Nick put together. You helped out with that one as well, especially with Saberwolf capturing footage, because none of us know how to play Saberwolf.
Yeah, so if anybody is unaware, I am a humongous Killer Instinct fan. That 2013 game is like literally one of my very favorite games of all time, and Saberwolf was my day one main from 7 years ago now when that game launched to this very day. So of course I was happy and willing to get footage for the episode. Yeah,
and I'm very glad that you were able to have participate in that episode, considering your history with Killer Instinct among all of us, like essentially.
Sure, yeah.
Oh yeah. Far exceeds.
When KI came out, Nick and I actually were roommates, and basically anytime I would come home, Nick would be on that the Killer Instinct machine is what it was called back then, because nothing else is on the Xbox One.
Yeah, well, actually, that Xbox One is still the one that I own, and you can label the console in the settings. It's still called KI Box, and that's more or less what it remains to be to this day. But yeah, like every time you'd come home, I'd hear the door open and be like, "Oh God, he's gonna catch me playing KI again." I mean, there are worse things you can walk in on a roommate doing.
The guilty ultra combo.
Like,
oh man,
it's
fun
not
times.
what it looks like.
I'm playing Halo.
Don't look at me.
It looks weird. Oh God. All right. Let's talk about that death battle. Okay.
Death battle.
I'm gonna be looking through Twitter, kind of pulling some questions. Let's get started with. How about a question that I saw a lot of people ask? This one is specifically from Jordan at Lizards for Days.
Yo.
Sure.
Yes.
But I saw a lot of people asking this. How do you decide which matchups to do in a death battle season? How do we select the matchups? And I think Liam, all of us can really talk about it a little bit. But
I think it's a combination of a bunch of things, right? Yeah. Like, say for example, I know that I do go into a new season like with ideas of like what matchups to suggest. And I will like pretty much like, I guess the way we do things typically is that we start the season by just asking people like, what matches do you guys want to see? What matches are you excited to do? And then from there, we kind of like have a huge list of like matches that we can potentially do. And we kind of like start streaming it down with the matches that make more sense in terms of like not only like similarities, but also like what people are looking for, people have been asking for. So yeah, a lot of factors go into it. I'm sure you guys can also add.
The show's been going on for so many years that we like absolutely have like a good idea of which fights have been like classically requested over and over and over. Mm-hmm. So like those are always like sitting in the back of our minds, being like, are we finally going to do this one? So it's a combination of that. It's also a combination of like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like finding like finding a weird matchup that we didn't that we hadn't seen requested before. That might be a lot of fun. And kind of tuning into what's like going to be really popular when these episodes start to come out. You know, just a big combination of that.
There are a lot of factors.
That last point for sure. I know that. At least back in my day, when I was a writer and researcher and all that sort of thing, the way I remember us doing it would be kind of as a general good starting point, kind of looking at what like comic book movies are going to be coming out that year. So like I think Black Widow was done in a recent season, if I'm not mistaken. It all runs together in my mind, but with the announcement of her movie, obviously there'd be a lot of interest in Black Widow, and obviously that movie got pushed back a couple of times, but hey, who knows? Maybe that death battle episode in particular, when Black Widow the movie does come out, will actually get a nice little bump in viewership, because that's just kind of how the YouTube machine works.
Yeah. So as you can tell, there are a lot of factors that go into it. Yeah, part of it is absolutely finding matchups that will, bring in views. That is important. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to maintain the show and pay everybody who works on it, which is quite a few people these days, if we weren't able to sustain a reasonable viewership and give our sponsors what we want, because most of the money that we're paying people comes from our sponsors. It's very important. But at the same time, there are so many other kinds of matchups that we want to cover. Like sometimes there are popular requests that maybe aren't necessarily the most popular characters, but it's a popular request that you guys want to see. And we're like, well, we got to do it. Sometimes we come across a matchup that we just think is fucking hilarious and we think it'd be fun to do.
We tend to strike some kind of balance between all of those points.
But I do think the question is also asking, like, what's the process? Because so the process of narrowing down what episodes we choose for each annual season. We do annual seasons nowadays, which is great. It makes it so much easier. So general process, one of my jobs basically is to every so often look through requests and the request form, and also just get a general gauge of the community to see what characters are being requested, what matchups are being requested. And I have multiple huge lists of just matchups, all sorts of matchups, and then I've organized them into. I have like a whole Excel sheet that's like matchups that fit different themes and what might be popular, what estimations for what kind of views it might get, etc. Things that just seem like really fun, gag episodes, like all sorts of things, all sorts of categories. So I have this big old list. And every time a new season is coming up and we get into the early stages of planning that season, I'll bring that list up and I will basically pull a bunch of episodes that I think might be good for the upcoming year and put them in a big list and then send it to the producers, see what they think. And if things are looking okay, then that's when we'll typically go to the animation team, research team, writing team, etc. See what they're feeling, like what kind of matchups do they want to do. Do the matchups that seem listed out of those, do any of them seem particularly important or like necessary to do in the upcoming year, etc. And then between all these different groups of people, we will narrow it down to the 16 to 20 episodes that we will be working on for the foreseeable future, which we have actually already done for our 2021 season 8 of Death Battle. We wrapped that up like about a month ago, actually, and we've been starting production on the new season, which is crazy.
It's insane.
We're rocking it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about some of the matchups we have coming up. But that's the general process, I would say. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance to like figuring out different episodes, and as Nick was talking about, like if certain like movies or big releases are coming up in the upcoming year, that might mean that certain characters are more highly requested, and we want to keep that in mind. So there's lots of factors, but that's the general process. Let's see. I've got a question from Brobuscus on Twitter. How exactly does the debating process go, especially given the researchers all live in different parts of the world? Is there a voice chat? Who all is involved? Is there a deadline for picking a winner? And does the debate just go until everyone is in agreement? Liam, you want to kind of discuss how the research goes?
Yeah. So 2 characters per fight matchup. We assign a researcher, one researcher to each character, and they're the leading researcher for that character. So like all the researchers can join in to like add stuff, and we all do, and we all like talk about stuff. But they're the ones that are in charge of that, and they make these like big character sheets that have all of the relevant information that you'd need to understand a character. And then we debate and talk, and eventually we have a deadline where we get into a big call together with Ben, and we discuss the fight and we decide who wins. it's I guess it's sort of like a jury thing where we're all in agreement. It's less like I
on
can't
trial. And the
Yeah,
penalty
exactly.
is death, always.
Additional question to that: does Ben go in with a gavel?
Yeah,
to the
I
meeting?
should.
absolutely.
Because that is kind of how
the powder wig and everything.
that is kind of how those meetings tend to go. Is I'm obviously jumping into like all sorts of episodes all the time, so I am not part of the research process overall. But when we do have one of these research syncs, is generally what we call them. The goal is the lead researchers for each character is sort of establishes, especially if I'm not familiar with the character, goes over what the character is bringing to the episode, things that I should know about, and then the goal is to convince me of who wins. And it's not just me though. Everybody in that meeting needs to be in agreement of who should win and why. Typically speaking, what will happen is the researchers in charge will have already discussed it and come with a solution in mind. And oftentimes, a lot of you guys like to build like a comparison doc, which is super helpful. Which is just runs down. It's essentially kind of like the conclusion parts that we have at the end of each death battle, where we just run through the different aspects of each character and compare them. And that always helps narrow down who should win and why. But once we are all in agreement of who should win, we have that locked down and we can move on. There are sometimes checks that need to be made afterwards. Sometimes we will end a meeting saying like, we're 99% sure that this character will win. We are at a good point where we can start, working on the battle script. But we should still look into a couple other factors. And, depending on what happens with that research, maybe the battle script will change in the middle of the writing process. But like the goal is to make sure that we have a winner selected for certain by the time animation begins.
Yeah.
I think that basically covers it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, another research question. Hopefully you can help answer this one, Liam. How do you guys calculate lengths and distance from various perspective in images?
This question feels like they asked it knowing what my answer is going to be, and they just want to hear me say like ang scaling. It's this we use like this like special little math formula that allows us to kind of take an image and measure its I just fill in the dots of the math at this point because I've done it so much. But basically, you can measure its angle in order to get the distance between like like the frame, and then like the image in the background. So if I have like an image of like, I don't know, Superman, and he's like looking at this planet, and then the next panel is him like he's flown to that planet, and it happened like really fast. How far away was he from the planet? Like that kind of thing. And applying that to basically any kind of calc. Or any kind of calc that involves that measuring that kind of distance. You can find like resources for it online, like Versus Battles Wiki has like a whole list of different calculations you can use, and that ang scaling is one of them. All reliable, useful in so many different calcs.
I saw somebody in the chat. Oh man, I missed it. I don't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned like, what happens if not everybody agrees on the winner?
The researcher that doesn't agree is cast into the fire, and that's the end. And then we're all in agreement.
Yeah, that's the easy solution.
That's the solution. I have my cast into the fire button right here.
Oh, careful with that.
Right here.
It's not supposed to be sent to you.
This was a terrible mistake. Oh, what a miscalculation.
No,
I get it.
We tend to go as until everybody is in agreement. Like if somebody has something that they are in, oh god, there it is. Cast into the fire. If one member of the team isn't completely sold on an idea, we will explore that idea until we get to a point where we can agree upon it, or at least we have some sort of compromise with it. I think a good example would be Zuko versus Todoroki. There is a specific feat, I suppose, related to pretty much every My Hero Academia character. It's the what was it? It's the track that they have to run around.
Yeah,
the stadium.
Yeah,
it's claimed that it is. It's been a little while since we've worked on that episode, so correct me if I'm wrong, Liam, but it's claimed to be like a 400-meter track around the stadium.
And it's important knowing that in order to get the size of the mini glacier that Todoroki creates. A glacier that would be instantly melted by the fires that are currently consuming me.
Leaning over into Ben's house, too.
Oh, God. No.
Yeah. And I remember part of the decision. Yeah, what is that?
You were crying a little there for a second.
We get it in my nose.
It's a tear? Oh, God.
So
oh,
no!
What is happening?
Oh, that's disgusting.
So we had this number, 400-meter long track, right? And there's one brief image of a map that shows like the track is going around the stadium. And so the thought was, well, does that mean that the stadium has a radius or a diameter of 400 meters? And that would obviously change the size scaling for the Heaven's Ice Piercer. I can't remember what it's called. Heaven Piercing Ice Wall. But
I didn't even know that's what it was called.
There was some. We weren't sure if that map that was shown was like.
Yeah,
it was just like
referencing
a sketch, basically. Like, is it true? Is it truthful to like the track? If you look at actual scenes of the race and the track, like they're not always next to the stadium, so it's possible that the track is like winding around, and that created a bit of a discussion of like, well, should we take this or not? And ultimately, the decision was made like it doesn't really matter too much. We can take it. We don't have to take it, but. We can still calculate the size of the glacier without it, and it's still way bigger than, spoilers, what Zuko would be able to deal with. So at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. But that's basically a discussion that we had, and that was the conclusion that we came to. And with that conclusion, we were able to completely agree on who should win and why. And I think even before that came up, we all were in agreement of who should win. It was more so just like, how should we present this information in the script? Is what the discussion was about.
Guess how many G's we got? 5, thanks to AT&T. They helped us a ton during RTX, and I even went and got a fancy phone upgrade so I could have all 5 of these G's too. You thought 4 was enough, and you were wrong, because 5 is just better. So many G's. But whether or not you're at home or on the go, you'll enjoy coverage in more places thanks to AT&T. Plus, AT&T doesn't make it complicated. 5G access is included in all the best consumer unlimited plans at no extra cost. So for more information on AT&T's 5G, visit AT&T.com/5G.
Let's see. Let's jump to an editing question, because I don't think we've had one of those. I'm just going to kind of make one up on the fly. Okay. Finding and using footage. What are the pitfalls and complications of using footage from a bunch of different sources, Nick?
Mixed frame rates that can cause an issue sometimes. It can actually in Death Battle. Knock on wood, it hasn't really very often made much of a headache for me. But on other projects, I mean, I've absolutely had issues where like this one video clip is at 30 frames per second. Another one will be at like some really weird one, like 23.863 frames per second. And I just got to
the classic
troubleshoot till it works, basically. No, but like in terms of Death Battle, using stuff from different places, like the biggest, not headache, but like the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle is taking stuff that is comic and manga reliant and doesn't have a whole lot in the way of anime and cartoons, movies, that kind of thing, and making that interesting. Because a slideshow, nobody wants a slideshow. No one wants that. So when you're presenting a bunch of just like information overload, you have to make that entertaining. So actually one thing that I've done since I've come back to Death Battle is I've really dove in headfirst. That's not a word. I've dived headfirst into the world of like motion graphics, and just I'm still a newbie when it comes to that, but I try to push myself with every episode like a true shonen. video editor should. So,
Heck yeah.
I'm trying to think of some good examples that aren't from. Okay, I can't really talk about anything because all the stuff
I can tell you that
of
the stuff I've seen
because-
looks awesome. So
hey, thank
far.
you so much. Thank you so much.
No, seriously.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of proud of what I've done given my past experience too. But
Yeah.
that's all for episodes that I'm pretty sure not announced yet. So I'm not gonna chance it. I'm gonna shut the flip up and just say, look for some pretty dope motion graphics. Or at least I think they're kind of dope.
Like
That's
actually,
awesome.
like
Cool
truly.
motion graphics.
Yeah.
I always feel bad when I'm filling out an editor's guide, and it's like I know all of the information is only comic book panels or only manga panels, and there isn't an animated equivalent that would work. And it's just like comic panel after comic panel after.
Well, now,
I'm like, I'm sorry.
honestly,
I'm sorry.
No, don't be, because like honestly, I'm having a ton of fun with that. Like there have been times that I've actually opted to use the comic panels or manga panels for something just because I have an idea for like a way to bring motion into it to make it look more alive and
Yeah.
part of a real world. So don't be too afraid of that. Like I please, by all means, if there is an animated equivalent, I want to know, because oftentimes, like sometimes that's just going to look better than whatever I can conjure up. But
Mhm.
I'm having a lot of fun with it.
That's actually an interesting point. I think there might have been some questions about this. Questions about like, are the editors involved in the research and writing process so that they know what to show on screen? And the answer is no. They're actually not. They're typically working on other episodes of Death Battle while the other research is going on, or some other Rooster Teeth show, depending on who it is and what kind of workload they have. The way we can definitely get into a more detailed breakdown of the process of a Death Battle episode, because I know a lot of people ask about that. But lots of episodes are being worked on at the same time, different stages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So an editor like Nick will be working on Winter Soldier versus Red Hood, and then they'll suddenly get assigned, or they'll suddenly once they're wrapped up with that, they'll get assigned Red versus Blue. It's like that. All the research is done, the writing is done. Chad and I have already recorded. They're just jumping right into it. So the way an editor gets all that information that they need is thanks to the researchers and the writer filling out an editor's guide, which you had kind of mentioned a little bit, Liam.
Yeah. Basically, it's just the script, and everything that requires specific information is highlighted, and we provide a clip or a comic panel or a manga thing, anything, what's needed there. So if one of them says Goku could punch a planet in half, I go, okay, right, where's the Goku punching a planet half feat? There it is, and I put it there.
Yeah.
By the way, whose
pretty
idea was
straightforward.
it?
Pretty
to do it that
straightforward.
way? Whose idea was it to start annotating the scripts that way? Because that has made the editing side of things way less of a pain than it used to be.
Yeah, back in the day, the editor was involved in the whole process, because we had a much smaller team, and typically the editor was also the writer.
Hello.
Yeah, very, very different situation.
Yeah.
Things are much smoother nowadays. So once we started moving away from that, I don't remember whose idea it was originally.
It's a good idea. I just
I think
wanted
it
to
was
say
mine, but I think I just figured, like, what's a good way to associate clips to different, segments of the script? Well, it makes sense to just link them together. Like, it's not complicated, really.
Yep.
It's essentially an annotated version of the script, but like with a lot of annotations, and also links to the research documents and the calc documents, because there's a bunch of like numbers that need to be put in there, and we need to make sure all the numbers are correct and whatnot. Like, one of the toughest things about a Death Battle edit, I think, in directing and just like quality control, is making sure all the numbers are right.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many numbers sometimes, and it can get very, very chaotic and very messy if we're not careful.
When it says link calc, I'm like, okay, Control C this massive block of text into this tiny little thing. This incomprehensible Lovecraftian like mix of numbers that don't even make any sense to me if I haven't looked at them in a couple of days. Yeah.
Luis, a question from Sammy on Twitter. How does animation start? What programs do the animators use? And where did you learn to animate?
Well, okay, so I guess it all starts once we get the storyboards, right? When we get the storyboard for the fight, we then break down all those other boards into animatics and into separate shots. After that, we kind of split out the shots based on not only like how hard the shots are, but also how like just trying to strike a balance so that everybody has a good amount of like hard and easy shots to work on. Since it's a big team. It's not just me. It's Zach, Gus, and our freelancers sometimes jump into our fights. So want to make sure that we strike a balance there.
I got a question for you, really quickly. What constitutes a hard shot versus an easy shot?
Yeah.
In my mind, I think I know, but I mean, since you're right here, and I can ask you directly.
Anything that involves choreography. Like actual, yes, thank you. And they like anything that involves a lot of like action, a lot of like movement, that classifies as a difficult shot. Specifically when there's like actual like fist and kicks. When it's like something like, for example, just like throwing a beam, that will be a little bit more of a medium like difficulty shot, depending on how complicated the effect is. But yeah, after that, we send out all the shots to all the animators, and they import their shots into Anime CC, which is what we use for sprite animation. And then from there, we also work on some rigs for the characters. So we're able to like manipulate the rigs. We've kind of been doing this since the beginning of this year. And it has helped out a lot in the animation process. I still remember whenever we needed any kind of animation, any kind of kick, punch, or whatever, we had to go to Jerky to ask, "Hey, can you make us this pose, doing this thing specifically for this like half a second animation?" and the rig process has helped us reduce that, and also at the same time make our animations look a lot smoother. Once the animation is all done, I grab all the files, and then we start going to the post process, where we start adding the animation into Blender, where we can import a 3D background and then start messing around with some of the camera, messing around with the camera and such. That process a little bit more of like just me kind of just filling it out for the fight. I tend to do a little changes here and there for all the shots, including mine, based on like what's happening in the fight. And that, I think that's the most like complicated part, because like you had to render out the backgrounds, and they take like a long time to render. And when that's happening, you kind of have to like balance that out with other stuff you're doing at the same time. So it's a lot of back and forward, but once that's all completed, we put that into Premiere, add the music, and then we send it off to sound.
Yeah, and of course, depending on the animation director and animation style, we'll also be using like Autodesk, Maya, Unreal Engine. Lots of different programs. Like every fight, has one of the most interesting and also most difficult things about Death Battle is that every fight has its own style. We don't have like a specific tone and style that we stick to throughout the whole show, because every episode deals with different characters. So
yeah, and as I said many times, the process of animating a Death Battle is always like we're always learning something new. Like we're using each Death Battle as a way to research different ways of animating, different ways of making things faster, or different ways to making things look even cooler. So like so yeah, it's just a very heavy, like what would you say that, like a very creative like process where you're just kind of throwing things and then and seeing what works and what doesn't. It's really, really cool. It's really cool.
Question from the chat. Gojira fan 431 asks, what was the reason for steering further away from calcs in the recent episode. I assume you're talking about Winter Soldier versus Red Hood. Basically, if it doesn't need it, then we're not going to necessarily show it. But it really depends on the matchup, frankly. We don't necessarily want to bog down an episode with a bunch of numbers, is basically a conclusion that I've kind of come to based on some feedback from you guys, from people who've been watching. A very common piece of feedback that has become more apparent over the past couple of years as we've very much leaned into Calix even more and more heavily is that it gets bogged down by the numbers, and the numbers becomes way more important to a fight than to an answer than other aspects, even when it doesn't need to be. So we are trying to make sure that the answers that we present are creative as well as very clear cut. And so for that episode, we didn't necessarily need to jump into it. I will say we can't spoil what happens in Saberwolf John Talbane, but there is a calculation that I think Lousy did that is insane.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Favorite calc of the year.
Yeah, it gets crazy. So if you are looking for some crazy numbers for some crazy feet, of all things, it's the werewolf episode that's going to deliver.
Of all things, yeah, truly.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that episode yet, so I feel like I'm the only one here who's out of the loop, and that's my main. Dang it!
It's pretty cool, and also, man, we just got the music, the final music in from Brandon for that, and I'm so excited for you all to see that episode. It's gonna be cool. Again, we'll have a sneak peek of the animation next week's show. Speaking of animation,
there are also calcs and future episodes coming up. Sorry, just wanted to get that in there.
Yep.
Calcs are not going away. They're coming back.
Yeah. It just depends on the episode, really.
Yeah.
And what we think is the best way to present it. So speaking of the animation, this is for everybody. How do you guys generally decide on how a character is going to die? Do you look for how fitting it is for the fight in the character, or do you just look for how brutal and cool it's going to be? And this is from Elrods on Twitter.
Ooh, it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when we're going into a fight, at least whenever I know the matchup, I would think about like before I even look at the script, I already thinking about like the way that a character would die if he wins or lose. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so that's something that I think we think about while like the writing process is happening for those fights. Yeah. And it's and I still remember like during those freelance days, man, I went a little bit crazy with those death scenes. It's just just going in with like the basic draft of those scenes and just kind of like let's see how we can make it a little bit more like brutal or like cooler. It really depends on what characters we're having them having fighting, if it fits for them to have a cool flashy ending or a very brutal like bloody ending.
For sure.
I know that as a writer, I naturally tend towards the kind of Mortal Kombat brutal death because it's what I find entertaining, which is sometimes very appropriate and sometimes not very appropriate. It all depends on the episode, and it really just it's just an extension of the rest of the fight. Like what matches the tone that you want to set for the fight, like what matches the characters, and finding it out that way. So sometimes it can be really hilariously gory and disgusting, and sometimes it should be a little more, straightforward. It all just depends.
Yeah.
I think back in the older days, I think part of the gimmick of Death Battle, that as far as we saw it, was just like, make it all bloody and brutal, make it all Mortal Kombat. I don't know, maybe Ben, you can speak to that, but like, for example, I think of Star Fox versus Bucky O'Hare. That kind of hurt a little bit to watch.
One of the best.
Like, yeah. I mean, I remember writing my first episode. My first fight was Batman versus Captain America, and I remembered you and Chad both being so excited. I remember one of you guys said, "We've never had a hanging before."
Oh my god!
Like,
Don't take that out of context. Oh my god!
Don't take that out of context. But like,
Yeah, well,
it
that's
just kind of
really
goes
good.
to show. Sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
It just kind of goes to show that like different eras of death battle prioritize different things. I think back then it was blood, guts, and that's part of the spectacle of it. Nowadays it's more so like, well, blood and guts if that fits the franchise, the property, but ultimately what you want is for fans of both fighters, both teams, whatever it might be, to walk away feeling like, yeah, that felt like that belonged in my franchise that I'm rooting for.
Yeah, I think a good way to think of it is we absolutely still have that mindset where it's like Death Battle needs to have some Mortal Kombat style fatalities, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so important. But we don't necessarily want an episode to feel like it's bullying one of the two characters. And every so often we might slip up with a kill, and you might notice that some of our more disliked episodes are the ones where it does kind of feel like we might be bullying a character unintentionally, but like that death at the end is very important to the general reaction to an episode. So we want to make sure that a character, if they are going to lose, they're being represented faithfully. They're not being stomped to death by a giant green boot for no reason.
I was like, am I allowed to like say it?
Where's it coming up? Or having a random helicopter falling on them and exploding. Those kinds of deaths, like we thought were really cool and would be like a creative use of taking out the character. And it's like we want to have creative finishers, right? But also making sure that the fans, the people who are watching who really enjoy one of those characters, don't feel like we are targeting you for some reason. That's not what Death Battle is about. Death Battle is at its core meant to celebrate the characters. And I think I've talked about this before, but the moment that really taught me that like we gotta keep that in mind is when I animated the Ninja Turtles killing each other horribly. That was I think the first
Raphael
moment where it was
stabbing.
like,
was it Donatello just
Yeah.
tearing him to shreds?
See, Donnie's my favorite turtle, and I had to animate in shitty Final Cut keyframe animation, Raphael stabbing him like 20 times or whatever, and it was not fun. And then we released the episode, and a lot of reactions were, "That was cool, but kind of hard to watch sometimes." So there's definitely a certain. Some restraint has to be there, but obviously, like we try to push the limits when we can. I saw Awesome Ethan in Twitter mention or ask Luis, how long does it take you, and what is the general process of like making an album cover for some of the music?
Yeah, for sure. Usually, an album cover takes about, I want to say, anywhere between 2 to 4 hours to make, like the general just art itself, and then after that, it's more about the fine tuning process, basically, to make sure that cover is like perfect. But I think the beginning process of it is just kind of going over it with you, Ben. Just kind of like, okay, so this is the fight we're doing, and what should we do to kind of like represent both characters in the album cover. And I think we start brainstorming some ideas and stuff like that, and eventually we come up with something that's like, like we all agreed on, and then I just get started. Been recently doing all the album covers in Blender, because I can't get enough of Blender apparently, and yeah, it's just a really fun way of like getting away from animation process to doing something a little bit more easier workload for me, I guess.
It's awesome. And I see Flaming Kitty in the chat asking like about the process for Brandon and Aaron from to make the music for each fight. We should definitely have either one or both of them on an episode. I would definitely like to bring them on Death Podcast to kind of dive into the process of the music, because I don't want to necessarily speak for them, but they're very quick, and generally speaking,
shockingly,
they're able to put together an early version of the track based on like the script and the production cycle as it's going, and then once we get into post production and the animation is done and time locked, they're able to just wrap it up and time lock it within a week usually. Overall, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to make a track. That's maybe 4 weeks at most. Like they can be pretty quick. It also depends on their schedules because they are contracted and they do plenty of their own music for other people and companies and whatnot. If you are looking for people to make music for something, I highly recommend Werewolf Theirwolf and Brandon Yates. They are fantastic at what they do. But real quick, I did want to kind of like go through, just like highlight the different stages of a death battle production, because I don't think we've ever actually like just bullet pointed our way through how an episode is
how the
made.
death battle sausage is made.
Yeah. And I wrote it out last night, and there's a lot. There's so many steps to a single episode. So typically an episode, and this goes for pretty much any kind of production, there are 3 main steps to production that they're classified as pre-production, production, and post-production. So breaking all of that down, pre-production would be basically like before animation and editing really comes into play. So pre-production would involve research, which is generally quite a lot of time spent on research. Then we have a research and writing sync where we decide who should win and why. And then we get into the writing. And writing has 2 stages. We got to write the battle script first, that we can get that prepared for animation. And then the host script writing, which typically takes a little bit longer than the battle script. As soon as the battle script is done and greenlit, we can move into storyboarding. And when storyboarding is done, we move into production, which was like the animation and whatnot. But even while that is going on, pre-production is still happening. We have to gather animation assets. We have to gather editing assets. And those would be like making models, pulling sprites, building our own sprites, rigging those models and sprites, finding the footage that we need, writing the editor's guide, making sure that all the footage is linked to whatever parts that need to be shown in the edits. And of course, Chad and I have to record with a boomstick. That's kind of an important part, right? We can't exactly start anything with an episode until the recording is done. And not just me, not just us recording, but we also need to do casting for the characters, oftentimes through sound cadence, who we've been working with for years at this point. And then we need to schedule recording for those actors. And depending on the episode, it might be 2 people, it might be 4 people, who knows? So that all needs to be recorded. Like all of that has to happen before production can even start, which is like the battle animation, the host animation, which we haven't really talked about using Toon Boom. Our musician gets started on the music. The director of the episode will often like have and also the animation director will have a sort of conversation with them discussing like tone and themes and inspirations. What kind of like themes associated with characters do we want to like reference? And then writers and director has to make slates and tabs. Those are a thing that is often forgotten. Like we got to make sure those are filled out and ready for the editor. And the editor, while they're doing their edit, also has to edit the preview videos. An editor is making 3 videos at once, basically. Yeah. And that all kind of fills the production timeline. And then the post-production is where everything gets kind of wrapped up. The biggest thing probably would be like viz post and sound. Viz post would be taking the animation and then applying effects, editing, tying it all together, lighting, things like that. The music is time locked here. Once we get the animation time locked, before like the effects are done, the animation time locked, we can get that to the musician. They time lock the music, and then that is good to go. And once that's good to go, we can get it all over to sound design so that they can design the sound and mix it. I think sound is often overlooked when it comes to productions like this. It is super important. There's a saying that sound makes up 60% of a movie, and is kind of true to a certain extent. Like you can have the coolest looking movie ever, but if it sounds like shit, it's gonna look like shit too. That's just kind of how our senses work. Yeah. So audio puts all of that together. And if we have sponsors, which you hopefully do to help fund this show, we got to make sure we read those and edit those, and those typically come in like pretty close to when the episode is airing, so we got to be quick with that. And of course, any final adjustments as we put everything together in the edit, and that's typically where we kind of wrap things up. Color correction, of course. There's so many moving pieces to a death battle. It is a very complex show. And these can even be adjusted even more depending on what kind of fight we're working on. Like if we're doing a fight with a Ruby team, we have to like maneuver around Ruby schedules and use their their timelines and setups, and there's a lot. There's just a lot. So I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping up. So let's go ahead and jump into the community death battle.
Hey, you know what's good? Being a carnivore. Pretty lit. I love it. Loved it my whole life. No intentions of stopping it, and it's getting even better thanks to Omaha Steaks. These bad guys over there are sending you juicy steaks, burgers, sausages, all kinds of things in the carnivorous world straight to your door, which is extremely convenient in a COVID-19 world. And not just that, you can get a special offer. You see, they're giving away some gourmet assortment to their best sellers, and it's an exclusive offer for our listeners. All you got to do is go to omahasteaks.com and enter the code DBC into the search bar. And this week's Omaha Steaks will add 2 pounds of premium ground beef free to your order. Plus, you're going to get free shipping on top of that. And all of it is going to be super delicious. So yeah, whether you get some of that good bacon or some filet mignons or just some ground beef, Omaha Steaks is a great place to go. And you get a bonus for watching our show, which is awesome. So go to omahasteaks.com, enter DBC in the search bar for a free exclusive offer, not available anywhere else. Don't forget, when you order today, Omaha Steaks will add 2 pounds of ground beef and free shipping. So Omaha Steaks has been bringing people together for over 100 years. Enjoy family, enjoy friends, enjoy the best steak of your life.
I know there are so many questions that we didn't get to answer, but we will be keeping those questions in mind for future episodes of Death Metal Cast. Thank you, everybody who sent those in. This is really interesting. Glad to have an episode just dedicated to it. But as always, we have a community death battle, which we come up with some stupid matchup here, and we let you guys let us know who you think should win and why. And last week, for some reason, it was decided we are going to be doing Ice Bear from We Bare Bears versus Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
Right.
Because why not?
It's one of the old, classic matchups it's requested. I think I saw the first one back in 2011. It's just an old classic one.
So as always, we let you tell us who you think should win and why. So let's go ahead and bring up the first answer from Twitter, which is from Federico Barreri. Sorry, I probably screwed that up. I think Snake Eyes would take this. I mean, that guy just has superior equipment along with enough fighting experience to counter the pretty good one of Ice Bear. Okay.
All right.
Arsenal
He's got plenty of equipment and experience.
Yeah.
Well, what about Ice Bear? Let's see what Ice Bear is bringing to the table.
I just want to say that this answer should win. Just
the answer.
Just
this answer should win.
Okay. Spooklord Flagalia says Ice Bear wins because Ice Bear is a fucking bear.
Look, Ice Bear is a white polar bear, right? And we all know the maxim,
Oh my god.
If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lay down. If it's white, good night. If it's gummy, it goes in your tummy. I don't think you can. That's my addition. Luis liked it. Luis likes my joke.
So stupid.
It counts. I'll take him.
He writes Death Battle, everybody.
How do you argue against Ice Bear being a fucking bear?
Yeah, it's indebatable. You can't debate his species.
Snake Eyes isn't a snake or eyes. He's a dude.
He's a lie. We know this.
Ice Bear is the truth. Ice Bear is all that you need.
Oh my god.
Man.
Snake Eyes is a false prophet.
I honestly don't know how to necessarily debate this outside of Ice Bear is ridiculous and absurd and super goofy. And I don't know if Snake Eyes would even know what to do. Either Snake Eyes would know exactly what to do and be like, oh, it's a fucking bear, let me kill it like a bear. Or he would treat it like a bear and realize, oh, this isn't just a fucking bear, it's an ice bear. And just be completely caught off guard and Ice Bear would crush him or something like that. I don't know.
This is a fucking bear. I gotta get out of here.
Oh God! Careful how you phrase that.
Yeah, I didn't mean that.
Oh God! Oh God! I don't even know. I don't think there's any debate. I don't think there's any debate. I gotta vote for Ice Bear.
It's unanimous.
Just because.
Unanimous.
I gotta
Ice
vote
Bear.
for Ice Bear.
Ice
He's
Bear.
a fucking bear. Bear of
Ice Bear.
ice.
Snake Eyes is a lie. He's not a snake or has eyes.
Snake Ice? No, Ice Bear.
All right. Well, as always, it's
I
not
can't
up to
riff
us.
on it
It's up to you. Let's move on from this nonsense and find out who actually wins, thanks to the poll that you all voted on. Let's bring that up.
Yeah.
Of course, Ice
That was an
Yeah.
easy win.
Who would pass up
Easy
the
win.
opportunity? Who
I
would,
love
who,
the
who would look
emojis
at that
so
and
much.
vote Snake Eyes? Besides 40% of your vote.
Yeah, 40% of the vote. Why would you vote
Yeah.
for Snake Eyes?
40%. That's less than 50%. You lose.
Obviously, the people who voted are misinformed and they should research Ice Bear.
Yeah. Ice Bear's a fucking bear. Duh.
Oh my God. All right. So just to wrap
Catch
this
up.
up, as always, we need to set up a new community death battle. Luis, you've had an idea for a while that's a little out there.
You do it.
Yeah, it's a little out there. I don't
Curious.
think we ever had anything like it. But,
Go ahead and pitch your idea.
Yeah, so how about a community death battle where is which city could last the longest? The city of Townsville, defended by the Powerpuff Girls, or the city of Metropolis, defended by Superman? Now, they're both really terrible at protecting the city. So
Yeah.
I think this will be a very, like,
Oh,
a
man.
In fact,
pretty close call.
They
basically.
actively destroy their own cities
Yeah,
on
exactly.
occasion.
Are we
So-
specifically talking about Man of Steel Superman?
Yeah.
That's what I thought of. So okay,
Um,
some parameters here. Are we going off
Mhm.
of percentage of the city still intact after an average fight, or is it
Right.
going to be like city blocks? Because
Yeah,
I
because
don't
the
know how
area
big
would...
either city is. I don't
Yeah.
know which one is
Yeah.
bigger.
I think it's mostly percentage wise because like
Okay, so
I
if
think it's safe
Metropolis
to
is
say
bigger,
that
Superman's got to fight for more of the city than the Powerpuff
yeah,
Girls do.
I Superman is also Superman. He's going to be faster and stronger, so he can handle that. I guess it depends. Like, what are they defending it from? Is the main question.
Yeah.
just-
yeah
Oh, man.
that is a good question, but it's mostly just like based on what disasters are happening in those cities.
Like typically.
Yeah, typically.
Oh, on
Like-
average, perhaps, like
Yeah.
which one
Yeah.
lasts longer? Which has the best survival? Boy, Townsville gets
like which
wrecked.
city will be the best to live in based on those two really horrible.
Oh,
Okay.
Lord.
I like that.
Okay,
let's
yeah.
let's do it
Yeah.
this way. Which city would you prefer? Which, based on a death battle scale, which city would you prefer to live in? Which city
Yeah.
do you think you would have the best chances of surviving?
Survival.
In? Metropolis with Man of Steel Superman
man.
flying around.
Yeah, it has to be
Or
Man of Steel
Townsville.
Superman.
Yeah. Which city would you prefer to live in? So
Oh man.
it's a departure from our typical format, but let's do that. All right. So community death battle again. Which city would you prefer to live in? Metropolis from the DCEU, I believe it's what it's called. DC
Yes.
Extended
Extended
Universe.
the movie
Extended
universe.
universe.
Or Townsville from Powerpuff
The
Girls. They have their
DCCU
guardians.
didn't quite.
They
I feel
have
like-
their protectors, but their
I feel like
protectors
Townsville
might not
is-
necessarily save you.
Yeah, I feel like Townsville's more likely to get attacked by a monster made of cotton candy. So based on that, that's my early prediction. I don't
But-
think a cotton candy monster has necessarily attacked Metropolis in any form.
Yeah,
No.
but
Might
do you
be
want to
wrong.
get turned into a dog?
Yeah.
Townsville
That's not death.
might be more fun, but Metropolis, that might be its advantage, and Metropolis is bigger, which might be its advantage. You know, live on the outskirts. Zod's probably not going to smash that building, maybe, but also you're basically owned by Lex Luthor because he owns like 75% of Metropolis. So like,
Yeah.
there could be some
He
weird
doesn't really
kryptonite
care.
experiment underneath your feet. Who knows?
Yeah. And Kryptonite will give you like horrible disease.
Yeah,
As
you
evidenced
got
by-
kryptonite
Give
cancer.
Lex Luthor
Congratulations.
cancer, yeah.
All right. I know we just did another joke community death battle. We're having like a pretty ridiculous one. We'll get to a more serious one after this, I'm sure.
I'm so sorry,
but-
everybody.
Not if I'm on the show.
I
I'll
love
share
this
that.
idea. I think it's fantastic. It's such a departure. Like having those like interesting, weird, matchups that have us like look at things in a different way is always fun. So let us know who you think which city would win your vote to live in and why? Using hashtag DeathMetalCast on Twitter. We will have a poll up on the Death Metal Twitter later on this week. And you can also leave your answer there. And we will find out which city wins next week. Thank you all for watching. Liam, Luis, Nick, thank you for jumping in for this awesome look behind the scenes.
Loved it.
Anytime.
I see Gerardo in the chat as well, another editor, longtime editor for Death Battle. Awesome to see you there, Gerardo. Thank you. And that'll wrap up this week's episode of Death Battle Cast. As always, be kind to others, be kind to yourself, be awesome. We'll see you next week.